I'm so tired of women being flooded with
How to be more feminine.
messaging because all I'm seeing is either overly complicated 80-step processes to being in your feminine energy like it's a full-time job, or I'm seeing overly stereotyped advice around the color pink, wearing dresses, or living in the forest completely removed from reality. In this video, I will share with you my own journey of how I went from being constantly in my hyper-masculine energy, I'm talking rigid, controlling, cold, and how now I am easily in my feminine energy, relaxed, receptive, and magnetic. And it's not complicated, and you don't have to love the color pink, I promise. And before I jump in, hello, my name is Anna Lacomi, and I've been obsessed with neuroscience since college. And in my 12-year marketing career, I became a neuroscience expert. I had to deeply understand how the human brain works. What does this have to do with feminine and masculine energy? You'll find out in this video. Okay, so before I tell you how I was able to stop being stuck in my masculine energy, allow me to paint a picture of what my life looked like before when I couldn't access my feminine energy the way I can now. Let me know if any of these resonate with you. So first of all, I was obsessed with constantly working. My to-do list had to-do lists, and I constantly had at least 5 goals that I was working toward. And I couldn't just relax or sit still. In fact, not working made me feel extremely anxious. I was addicted to taking action, which is masculine energy. I was basically a human doing, not a human being. And instead of planning fun things to do in the evenings or the weekends, I was constantly just planning how to get more work done and chase my goals. My entire worth was in my productivity and my ability to be disciplined. And even though I was so obsessed with chasing my goals, I was never actually happy no matter what I achieved, no matter what milestone I hit. I could never just take a moment to pause or, God forbid, celebrate myself. I truly didn't feel joy from all this activity and goal chasing. In fact, I felt quite empty. I felt pretty numb. And if I'm being brutally honest, I felt pretty lonely. And this was so uncomfortable. So rather than sit with those feelings, I would immediately jump into the next goal and start chasing the next thing. And instead of feeling happy about all my success, my progress, I constantly felt like I was behind and I constantly felt like I wasn't good enough. The more in my masculine energy I was, the lower my self-esteem was. Other ways that this masculine energy manifested in my life was I was really rigid and controlling. And I'm really embarrassed to admit this, but I was a micromanager at work. And not just at work. If anything didn't go exactly as I planned in my life, I would spiral about it. I had all these extreme expectations and imaginary rules that I expected everyone to follow around me. I honestly sometimes don't know how my husband tolerated this. And looking way, way back on my life, since I've been a high achieving woman since I was in school as a little girl, I can totally see how this rigidity and need for control caused the disordered eating that I had for many, many years. And it was a crazy loop because I thought I would feel better if I was in control. But the more controlling I was, the more out of control I actually felt. And then finally, because I was so work obsessed and rigid, I came across as quite robotic and cold and like a machine. Because I had been so in my masculine energy, I had turned all of my emotions off. I thought that feelings were weakness and I wanted to be strong. And so I desperately wanted to operate purely in logic. And so things like friendship suddenly didn't have much value to me if they didn't contribute to my goals, which I thought were the most valuable thing I could spend my time on. I basically operated myself like a computer and my whole life like a factory. And this masculine energy made it really hard to connect with people. In fact, I was even disconnected from my own self. I was disconnected from my body, my emotions, my being. And that's because I really thought that suppressing my emotions and feelings would make me more successful. But all it did was make me feel empty, cold, and lonely. If you can relate to any of those, please drop a comment below. And you can see how becoming more feminine would just be another way to try to control myself or try to be successful at being feminine. And you can see how receiving some complicated formula to become more feminine would make me more masculine and more rigid to do it right. And finally, you can see how stereotypical things like wearing dresses or buying myself flowers wouldn't do shit because it would still be me wearing that dress, still me having all of those masculine behaviors. I could be wearing pink head to toe with a bow on my head, but I would still be the same me. masculine, rigid, controlling, and anxious. This is because the problem wasn't anything external, it was internal. In fact, it was neural. What was happening is my brain had been trained for years to be in this constant state of mental activity and chronic overdrive. My brain's ability to solve, anticipate, always stay 3 steps ahead is what made me successful. However, my brain had never learned how to switch out of that performance mode automatically. And so I was stuck in this constant hyperactive state, which was causing me to behave in this hyper masculine way. My brain was operating exactly the way it was wired to operate. And as my brain continued to operate in this way, my masculine tendencies got stronger and stronger because of neuroplasticity. And what we repeat creates stronger and stronger neural pathways that we're more likely to choose over weaker ones that we don't use as often. And so, because I couldn't turn off all this mental activity, my brain never learned that it was safe to let go, relax, surrender, be present. All feminine qualities. And so, no wonder I wasn't able to access my feminine energy. My brain was a highly skilled masculine machine. And on top of that, my identity was built on my ability to succeed. So even if I wanted to turn off these masculine tendencies, I felt like I couldn't, even when they were costing me things like joy, peace, my health, my happiness, my relationships. And there were so many times when I was stuck in these hyper masculine tendencies where I was wondering, like, is it possible to be successful and happy? I felt like I had to choose between my ambition and actually enjoying my life. And now I know that that is not true, and you can absolutely have both. In fact, the better you feel, the more success you attract as well. And so, this is why prior to retraining my brain, no matter how hard I tried to be less controlling, less rigid, less anxious, I just couldn't. And since working with other ambitious women like myself, I've noticed that this is a pattern in many of us. And so I've decided to give this a name, and I call it the Ferrari brain. It's when you have this fast, powerful brain, but it was never taught how to idle or slow down. And so it doesn't stop when the workday ends. It just keeps going and going and going. And that's what makes you stuck in this hyper masculine tendencies and energy. Basically, that masculine hustle and overdrive has become your default setting that you just haven't been taught how to switch off. And like I said, it is hard to break these patterns on your own because there are benefits to having a Ferrari brain and these masculine strengths. But the problem becomes when these strengths are overused and you're unable to switch out of that and be more in that feminine energy, which is required so you can be intuitive, creative, playful, receptive, open, aka all the things that are required for you to actually enjoy the life you are working so hard to build. And by the way, if you'd like to confirm if you have a Ferrari brain or not, you can grab the free Ferrari brain assessment below. And if you do have a Ferrari brain, the truth is, until your brain is retrained that it is safe to slow down, it will keep defaulting to what it knows. Stay active, stay alert, stay on. And this is how you get stuck in those masculine tendencies. And this is why over time they become your normal baseline. And this is probably why perhaps being masculine feels like your personality when it is not. It is just a tendency that you have because your brain is stuck in performance mode. So no, if you want to be more feminine, you don't have to wear pink, you don't have to quit your job, and you don't have to live in a cottage. You have to retrain your brain. And this is exactly the kind of work I do with my clients. And it's not about teaching you some superficial feminine behaviors or hacks. And it's not about taking away those beautiful masculine qualities that you have that have gotten you where you are today. It's about retraining how your brain actually operates so you're no longer stuck in that constant overdrive that is causing you to be in that hyper masculine energy and unable to safely, easily, and quickly switch into your feminine energy when you want to be. Because the truth is that you are a female, you are a feminine being. Feminine energy is natural to you and it is your birthright. It's about being able to be in your masculine energy when you're at work or slaying your goals, and then switch into your natural feminine energy, whatever that looks like for you, at your command. And that's what you're able to do when you retrain your Ferrari brain. Because all this is a pattern repeated over time that creates neural pathways in your brain. And when you work with me, we use a science-based tool from Stanford University to stop the overuse of those patterns and create new ones so you can easily access both your masculine strengths and your feminine ones. And by the way, this work requires just 10 minutes a day, so it's not laborious in any way. And most of my clients feel significantly different in just 1 to 2 weeks. The women that I work with don't lose their ambition or their edge. They're just not bringing that into every area of their life. This is how we create that balance that we keep hearing about. It's the ability to toggle in between feminine and masculine mode at your command. The most successful women I know use both masculine and feminine energy. This is how you become successful and also enjoy your beautiful life. Your body, yourself, your relationships, your partner, your children, your world. When you retrain your brain to be able to switch off that mental activity and chronic overdrive, which come from survival, by the way, you're able to truly, truly thrive. After all those years of me being so hyper masculine, as you've already heard, it's always so crazy to me when I see all these people gravitating towards me precisely because of my feminine energy. It feels so uncomfortable to say this, but a lot of people see me as this feminine role model when it comes to how I run my business, how I operate in my marriage, how I take care of myself, what my daily life looks like. It's almost like this feminine energy, and with that, this pleasure and joy and relaxation just oozes out of my body, and it's just become really, really obvious to people. And all of this is because I retrained my own brain using the same tool that I use with my clients now. And being feminine to me is not some elaborate process. It is just who I am. It's like when the chronic overdrive patterns of my brain went down, my natural instincts and what brings me joy and being able to actually focus on that and lean into that was able to finally happen. And so it's not, I don't have to work on being feminine. I can just be feminine because my brain is no longer blocking me from my own femininity because it's stuck in that chronic overdrive that causes masculine behaviors. And I don't care about what other people think is feminine at all. I get to define what's feminine to me. I get to define what feels good for me. And I'm able to actually behave in those ways because I'm not having those compulsive, overactive tendencies that I used to have just because my brain was stuck in that performance mode 24/7. If you're feeling called to do this work and you want to see what you could feel like and what your life and career could be like if you stopped being stuck in this hyper masculine energy, I invite you to check out the ways you can work with me in the links in my description. At the time of this recording, I do have a group Ferrari Brain program kicking off soon, and I have a couple one-on-one spots available for next month. And if you loved this video on masculine versus feminine energy, I have a sneaky suspicion you're gonna love the video I made about how I used to give my husband the worst version of me, controlling, rigid, anxious, and how I was able to become the relaxed, magnetic, receptive, goddess, dream girl kind of wife that I am today. I'll see you in the next one.